I ain't going anywhere. I'm here. Look, every time something happens, people say, oh, you should step down, you should step down. Well, the reality of it is that's not happening, so stop the noise on that.
That, of course, is Michael Steele speaking earlier this month about his plans to definitely not resign as chairman of the Republican Party, despite the umpteenth round of calls for his resignation. As of today, you can make it umpteen plus one. Today, the treasurer of the RNC has accused Michael Steele of hiding more than $7 million in debt in order to make the Republican Party appear to be in better financial shape than it actually is. The story was first reported by the conservative establishment newspaper of choice, The Washington Times, which underlined the seriousness of the allegations against Mr. Steele by pointedly noting that simply misreporting fundraising numbers to the FEC can lead to millions of dollars in fines, and criminal charges can be levied if the actions are suspected to be intentional. Now, the fact that this story was broken and so aggressively reported by this particular conservative newspaper is not a coincidence. Key conservatives are not just Washington Times readers, they're also Washington Times sources. In other words, if you want to know just how badly the Republican establishment wants Michael Steele to go away, take a look at the Washington Times, where you will find that reporting dirt on Michael Steele has become a beat all its own. Back in April of last year, just months after being elected chairman of the RNC, the Washington Times published an exclusive on efforts at the RNC to limit how much control Mr. Steele would have over the party's cash. They followed up that reporting with another exclusive about a week later, noting that Mr. Steele had in fact been forced to sign a secret pact agreeing to restraints on how he spends the party's money. Later that month, the Washington Times reported, again exclusively, on a new controversy over Mr. Steele's tendency to hire longtime friends and associates and pay them substantially more than what their predecessors made. Then late last year, two former RNC chairmen went to the Washington Times exclusively with their criticism of Michael Steele's habit of personally taking money for speaking engagements. In January of this year, the Washington Times reported that Michael Steele was driving away big Republican Party donors. Quote, a number of major contributors, some of whom declined to state their complaints on the record, said Mr. Steele had not made personal calls to them as other chairmen have. Then came yet another Washington Times exclusive about how Republican Party officials were poised to demand that Mr. Steele call off his national book tour, followed by the Washington Times also exclusive reporting on preparations being underway for a post-Michael Steele RNC, which included news that a state party chairman was quitting his job in preparation for a possible challenge to Mr. Steele. And that is just a sampling of the reporting on the head of the Republican Party from Washington's very own daily conservative newspaper. It's actually hard to think of a non-gaffe-related Michael Steele scandal that wasn't broken or super aggressively reported on by the Washington Times. The only exception, perhaps, would be the reporting on Michael Steele's desire for a private jet and the RNC's bankrolling of bondage-themed nightclub outings. That story, of course, was first broken by a conservative website called The Daily Caller, which is essentially the online answer to the Washington Times. Joining us now is John Stanton, reporter for Roll Call newspaper. Mr. Stanton, thank you again for joining us. Nice to see you.
It's good to see you.
So, obviously, couldn't help but notice how many Michael Steele scandals have been unearthed by this one conservative paper. Should that fact, the fact that so much of this reporting is coming from the Washington Times, be seen as a sign that there is a specific group of conservatives who are really out to get him?
To a certain degree, yeah. I think you can definitely draw that conclusion. The Times has long had very good relationships with members of the conservative, movement, particularly within the Republican Party. They've sort of well known for having a lot of sources within the RNC, members in the states and stuff like that. And so, this is not just a few members of, say, Congress or the Senate that are upset with Mr. Steele. This is sort of a broader problem.
And among the sources that turn up over and over again in these Washington Times stories against him, the name Randy Pullen comes up a lot, RNC treasurer. He's the one making these latest allegations about Michael Steele trying to hide RNC debt. Is he a wannabe replacement for Michael Steele? Does he have credibility issues on his own?
I'm not sure if he wants to replace Michael Steele. I do know that he has he's long been sort of rumored to be the source of some of these stories that the Washington Times and others have written. He's made no sort of secret of his unhappiness with Chairman Steele and his tenure. There are some questions that, that have been raised by some of Steele's supporters saying that he was involved in some potentially sort of questionable money issues with the Arizona Republican Party. So they're sort of trying to throw a little mud back, I think. But he definitely, his motives, I think, are pretty clear that he's not happy with Chairman Steele. So,
John, the main question I have about this, and the reason I wanted to talk to you about it, is I feel like there's this Beltway common wisdom that it's not feasible to get rid of Michael Steele, that it would be way too disruptive, they can't really get rid of him. But if that's the case, why is it that there keep being these leaked stories against him? I mean, conservatives probably ascribe to that common wisdom, too. Or do they know something that the rest of us don't, that Michael Steele could be gotten rid of?
No, he really, I mean, he could in theory be, I guess, but in reality for Republicans, it would be a terrible situation. It would take probably weeks to get rid of him, assuming he wouldn't just sort of go quietly, which he's made very clear he won't. And to do that would take the focus off of the Obama administration and off the Democrats right up close to the election. And so most Republicans are sort of resigned to him being around. That being said, this is Washington, and leaking is the favorite sport of members of a dysfunctional relationship, and so they decide that they want to take it out on him some way because they're frustrated or upset or whatever, and they decide to start throwing these kinds of tidbits to the press, and what you get is sort of a circular fire squad almost, where they just end up hurting each other.
John Stanton of Roll Call, thanks very much for your reporting and for your time, John. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.